just going to let the opening FMV run first. It doesn't have any subtitles. Try to listen up.
That's the last contact. Moving to escort position. Roger that. Thanks for the assist.
Mech base, ship to ready status. Combat operations are commencing.
Planet Port Arthur. Deep in clan territory. The counterattack begins.
Commanders, report landing zone status.
Alpha landing zone, all clear. Bravo zone, clear.
Delta zone, clear.
Panther, I need Charlie zone status. Report.
Sir, it's real quiet down here.
I think we can call it clear.
You think? Don't think, Mech Warrior. Find out. Finish your sweep.
Colonel, flight deck needs final confirmation.
Commander Harrison, can you confirm Charlie Zone clear? I have an invasion to go to.
Sweeping last sector now, sir.
I think we can count on Mr. Harrison. Tell them we're clear.
We are go for invasion. Touchdown in. 132. 131.
Ricochet Lance, move to waypoint green. And stay sharp. I don't like the smell.
I got something.
Clear the channels. I have enemy contact.
Past the abort window, Colonel.
Panther, move them up. Let's see what we've got.
Commander, I assume you have this under control.
Let's get this done, folks.
Command, this is hard game. Target's coming into vision.
Show yourself, my little... Son of a bitch!
Sir, they've got us ranged.
Get to him. He can't be allowed to get off a message.
I'm ejecting!
Track that pod.
Magcat, Jaguar Magcat.
Venture Viper, move to these coordinates.
Where the hell?
Hold your position, Panther.
He's way outgunned.
Hit him. Get his attention.
Sir, I...
Do it!
Got its attention, sir.
Now move out.
Roger that.
Follow this path. Turn. Take the turn. Almost there.
I can't keep up this pace!
Now take the next right.
Commander, this is a dead end.
I don't have jump jets.
I know what you've got. Hold your position.
Damn it, sir, I need some help!
Here it comes. Panther, finish him.
Hey, Panther, did you miss us?
Commander?
Reporting Charlie Zone, all clear.
Nice shooting, team.
Harrison, excellent job. Now cinch up tight, soldiers. We're coming in hard.
Mech Warriors, you should have a visual on us. Form up and look sharp. We have an invasion to go to.
Roger that. One clanner down, about 100 more to go. Welcome to Port Arthur, sir.
Well, if that doesn't get you hyped for a game, I don't know what will. MechCommander. Had to record that a number of times because I can't keep my mouth shut during it. I get too excited. I think I finally managed to this time. The first thing I'm going to say is that if you just want to see the combat and see me do the missions, I would recommend skipping to the next video, because in this one I'm going to talk about all of the material, mechs, and weapons at our disposal, explain some of the mechanics of the game. This is going to be quite thorough, because I really love this game. I played it to death. back in 98, 97, 99, whatever. There's no way I can play this blind because I've played through the game so many times. Preferences, it doesn't have a selectable resolution. These were the old days. You know, back then you just had one resolution. It's actually 640 by 480, but I'm playing it in a 1280 by 960 window, so I've doubled it. And it's being stretched a second time to 1400 by 1050 in the recording window in the video. And that is fitting a resolution of 1680 by 1050, so there's extra space, and I put some pictures over there. At least give you something to look at instead of black bars. I'm going to be playing the game on regular mode. The difficulty in this game is balls to the wall on hard. I have beaten it in the past on hard mode, but for the sake of recording it, I'm just going to be playing on regular. It doesn't mean I won't lose any pilots though. I'll probably lose a few over the course of the campaign. Okay, first things first, or second thing I should say, there is another FMV to watch. This one is much shorter.
Command
I'm just gonna let it start.
Incoming transmission.
Davion Guards. Our 1st Battalion is on planet. We caught the Smoke Jaguar off guard, but just barely. They were able to activate the planet's orbital guns and caught the dropship York before she landed. We have lost all contact, so assume XRAY Company is out of the picture. Yankee and Zulu companies, you'll pick up the slack as well as any survivors and equipment that can be used. While those guns keep us pinned down, support will be limited, so salvage is a priority. Davions, make no mistake. Despite the loss of XRAY Company, our battle plan is intact. We will take this planet back. I'm downloading your mission briefings. Move to destroy the designated clan targets and we'll gain a beachhead before they can react. The battalion will make special equipment available as required.
Alright, there you go. I'm not going to go too deep into the story for this game. I'm going to assume you know something about MechWarrior. And I'm not going to explain every single thing about MechWarrior either, but I'm just going to explain how it differs for this particular game. This game takes place during the clan invasion of the Inner Sphere. When the clanners invade, they took a planet called Port Arthur, which belonged to the Federated Sons, and we are tasked with taking it back. We are part of the 1st Davion Guards, as she said. So this is Operation 1, Mission 1. Every 6 missions is in a different operation. So this one says Beachhead. FedCom, that means Federated Commonwealth. That refers to the Federated Sons and the Lyran Commonwealth, which are allied together. Let's start by looking at our store. Now we can only buy Inner Sphere tech in the game. Inner Sphere Mechs and Inner Sphere weapons. We cannot buy anything from the clans. We cannot buy any clan tech. It can only be salvaged. All of the clan mechs and weapons are better, but you can only salvage it. So there are 10 Inner Sphere Mechs in the game. This will become filled out over time. Customization in this game is more limited than in the MechWarrior games. You can change the weapons on a mech, but you cannot change other things other than the electronics. Every mech has 3 variants: A, W, J. The A variant has extra armor versus the other 2. They distributed more of its weight to the armor. W has extra weapons versus the other 2. They distributed more weight to the weapons. So when you look over here, the total of weapons will be heavier. It has more weight for weapons. J variant does not have the armor or the weapons, and what he has instead is jump jets. So every mech in the game will be one of these three variants, and you cannot change them. You would have to change the entire mech. Their costs differ, their value differs. The game typically values the J at the most. See, with this mech, it looks like the A is second. Sometimes the W could be highest though. Let's see. On this one it looks like the A is the cheapest. The J is a little bit more expensive than the W. So we have the Commando, which is the 25-ton fodder mech of the game. It's going to be pretty useless after the first few missions. It can be useful as a scout mech or to fill up the last 25 tons, but usually you're better off just increasing the weight of your other mechs as opposed to slotting a Commando for 25. So we want to get rid of Commandos as soon as possible. They're just the fodder. The next one is a fire starter, 30 tons. Not much of an improvement over the Commando, to be honest, except he does have a longer jump jet range. The fire starter and the Raven both actually have a longer jump jet range over the Commando. Doesn't say so in the tooltips, but it's true. Fire starter is normally a 35-ton mech, but in this game we have an alternate variant of it. It's 30. Many of our mechs actually have a different weight than what you would normally see them in other games or in the Battletech lore. It's not that they're not canon, it's just that mechs have multiple weights. A mech does not always have the same weight. You can actually have different variants of a mech that has different weights. So our fire starter in this game is 30 tons, whereas the regular one is 35. And next on the list we have the Raven at 35 tons. This mech is the most unique one in this list because it's the only one that can slot the advanced electronics. You can see over here Guardian ECM Beagle Probe, Sensor Advanced. You can only put those in a Raven or a light clan mech, of which there are 2. So only 3 mechs in the game total can get these electronics, and out of the Inner Sphere list, only 1 mech. That's this Raven. It's a good idea. It's usually useful to have a Raven in your drop lance, but you'll get one a couple missions in, so you don't have to worry about buying one unless you want to change the variant. I believe it's a W that they're going to give you. I would prefer A or J on it, to be honest. The A will add armor to protect your electronics, and the jump jets are useful. You can see that the W upgrades the missile racks to a large laser, which weighs more. Over here, W slots a PPC. It's a pretty decent weapon, but we'll talk about weapons after the mechs. Now we're up to medium. See, those were lights. Now we're at medium, 45 tons, Hollander 2. The Hollander 2 is built around a giant barrel. He's basically a Gauss rifle with legs. It says Hollander 2 because the original Hollander was a 35-ton light mech. We're using the second variant. So this is an alternate version that added 10 extra tons and actually bumped it up to medium. This version of the mech is much more versatile. The original one had a Gauss rifle, just like this one, but a 35-ton mech fitting a Gauss rifle doesn't leave much room for anything else. Whereas the 45-ton mech does not have to sacrifice as much to slot that. It's much better for it. Next we have the Hunchback at 50 tons. This mech is also built around a giant ballista hardpoint, but by default they come equipped with a heavy autocannon. That's the guy that got gunned down, the opening FMV. 4 of these mechs were in the opening FMV, along with the Mad Cat, which you can eventually get. You can't buy one, but you can salvage one. Next we have the Centurion. This is a common mech throughout the Inner Sphere, especially with the Federated Suns, because it has an all-around mixed build of hardpoints. Most of the mechs focus towards 1 or 2 weapon types. The Centurion has all 3 of them. 2 lasers, autocannon, 2 missile racks. W upgrades to a PPC. When you look at this guy, W, he upgrades one of the lasers to a large laser. You'll notice it says 55 tons. The original Centurion is 50 tons. We get a slightly heavier version that added 5 tons. Now, the reason we have so many alternate variants is because they wanted to spread out your weight as much as possible. They want all of your mechs to be at a different weight value and not stack the same one at the same weight value. So Firestarter's at 30 because the Raven's 35. So we have 25, 30, 35. The Hollander 2 is at 45 because again we already have a 35 ton mech, so they gave you the 45 ton version. Since we already have a 50 ton Hunchback, they gave you a 55 ton Centurion. So you have a 50 and then a 55 instead of 2 50s. Our next mech is the Catapult. More than any other mech on this list, this mech likes missiles. You can see it has a large number of LRM missile racks. The 2 arms are giant missile racks. Now this mech is unique for another reason. It actually adds more armor for its weight. Most of the mechs evenly distribute their armor and weapons, but they change a little on the variant. But all 3 of the Catapult variants actually add more armor for its weight class. So I would recommend W on this particular mech because this mech has extra armor anyway and less weapons. So slotting the weapon will help compensate for this. Whereas if you get A, it's basically double armor and no weapons. Whereas if you get W, you have armor and weapons. The Jaguar mech is the exact opposite. Unlike most of the other mechs on this list, it actually dedicated more of its weight towards weapons. So the W and the J variant here, they basically have tissue paper for armor. Their armor is pitiful. So I highly recommend the A variant on this particular mech. The Jaguar mech, get the A variant. He has plenty of weapon room anyway. He needs armor so he doesn't get blown up. And you also notice he's 70 tons. This is yet another alternate variant. The original Jaguar mech is 65 tons, but we already have a Catapult at 65, so they gave us a heavier version, the Jaguar mech at 70. Next up is the Awesome. This is probably a very popular mech for other people that play the game because it comes equipped with 3 PPCs, so you get 3 of those just for buying the mech. It's also well rounded on its stats. Go with A, W. So he upgrades the 2 lasers to pulse lasers. Either way you get the ER PPCs. The Atlas, the 100-ton truck, slowest mech in the game, heaviest mech in the game, but doesn't necessarily carry the most weapons. The Clanners actually have an assault mech that's 85 tons and can carry more weapons than the Atlas. And it's faster. It also has more jump jet range on the J. But I recommend the A variant because the W and the J don't carry very much armor. Similar to the Jaguar mech, he dedicated more of his weight towards weapons, not very much to armor. So even though you have a 100-ton assault mech, he doesn't have very much armor if he's a W or a J. If you plan for it to take hits, I recommend the A. Since it's so slow, if you're driving an Atlas, you're going to get hit by everything the enemy shoots at you anyway. So I recommend the armor. Now there are two ways to play the game. You can either completely ignore what the mechs were designed for, or their roles and hardpoints, and just slot anything on everybody. The game does not enforce any type of hardpoint restrictions. For instance, you can take the Hunchback, you can take off the heavy autocannon, which is an AC-20. You could put a PPC there. But I'm not going to do that. I like the way the mechs were designed. I want to play them with that design in mind and enforce hardpoint restrictions. So the catapult, these are missile racks. You're supposed to use missiles. I'm not going to put autocannons on them. It's not supposed to have ballistic hardpoints. So I'm going to play the game as if I would be restricted on the hardpoints, even though it doesn't restrict you. It doesn't stop you from putting whatever you want on any mech, but I'm going to play them with, their original design in mind, because that makes things more interesting for me. So if I customize this Hunchback, for instance, I might put an AC-10 in his shoulder, or some Ultras, some AC-5s, but I'm not going to load him up on missiles because he's not supposed to have missile hardpoints. That's just my personal preference. I think it makes the game more interesting and the mechs more diverse, instead of just putting anything on everybody. This is the Mech Warrior tab. We'll be able to buy more pilots as the game goes on. That's going to be important, especially if people die, because this game has permadeath. Pilots can die, and if they die, they are just dead. They're not coming back. You have to slot someone else and move on. You'll notice the nice emblem there. The Federated Sun logo is usually a sword over a sun, and it's kind of red and gold. But we're playing the first Davion Guards. They like blue and gray for their colors. They have a sword over a helmet. So I also put that as one of the pictures on the right. See it over here. I just kind of like it, and it seems fitting. That was on the logo on their uniforms, the FMV. You could see it. So they did their homework. First Davion Guards. Let's take a look at our weapons. They do start you out with some equipment. So this stuff over here is what I own. As soon as you start the game, you own this. You own these. And they are color coded. So the green here is short range weapons. The red is long range, and we don't have any medium in the middle. And then they put sensors at the bottom. We just have one. Now where you're going to get confused is with the naming conventions on the weapons. You can see that some of this stuff is already available for purchase. So the pictures fill out and it says available. With the mechs, there are no mechs available yet. So everything was empty. But the first thing to mention is that there is no heat in this game. So you can fire energy weapons all day long. Mech will never overheat and shut down like they would in Mech Warrior, because there is no heat. They tried to take into account heat sinks when they distributed points on the mechs, so you could pretend that they have heat sinks and that they just don't fire enough to overheat, but basically there's no heat in the game. And that does not mean that necessarily mean that you want to stack energy. You can, but energy weapons don't have as good a DPS as ballista and missile weapons in this game. And missile weapons can shoot over obstacles, which can become a big issue on certain missions that have walls and trees and buildings in the way all over the place. But the next big issue is that you cannot control how much ammo you have on a mech. This short-range missile pack, for instance, it has 62 shots. It will always have 62 shots. There's no way to increase that. With other games, you can add more ammo to a mech for a particular weapon. In this game, you can't do that. The amount of ammo for a weapon is hard-coded to the weapon. Even if I slot 2, the pilot will just fire both of the guns at the same time, so it's the same number of shots. You're just shooting double. They'll both have 62 shots, they'll shoot both at the same time, so the same amount of ammo really. Coming from Mech Warrior though, you'll notice that the naming conventions are different here. It just says laser. Short range missile pack. It doesn't refer to their size. The laser and pulse laser here are actually mediums, and they have a short range. There's only 3 ranges in the game, because this is an RTS where they cannot do, at the time they could not do complicated ranges, so it's just short, medium, or long. These medium lasers have a short range. So you can see their stats here. The pulse laser weighs more, doesn't hit as hard, but the recycle time is more than twice as fast. So DPS wise, pulse laser is better, but it does cost a bit more. As for the missile packs, those are SRM2s. That short-range missile pack, it's an SRM2. The damage number is misleading. It says damage 1. That's actually damage per missile. So that could potentially do 2 damage per shot. The thing about missiles in this game, though, is that each missile has its own separate hit chance. So if I fire 2 missiles, I could hit both, hit 1, or miss both. So it's 0, 1, or 2 damage per shot. But you're still getting 62 shots. So this is not the total. This 62 is not the total amount of ammo. It's the total number of shots or volleys. So for missiles, it would be 62 times 2 for the total number of missiles that you have. Moving down, we have streaks. Again, this is a 2. It's a streak SRM2. The damage says 2 this time. It actually has the same damage as the regular SRM pack, but the difference is that it will never miss. The streak is the only weapon in the game that does not have a miss chance. When it fires, it is guaranteed to hit the target. So instead of a 0, 1, or 2, it will always be 2. The downside is that it costs much more. 410 credits for SRM, 1,300 for a streak. It's a big difference. Additionally, it weighs more. You can almost slot a second SRM for 1 streak, 3 tons versus 5 tons. Their value depends upon how good your pilot is at shooting. Personally, I prefer the regular SRM pack because once your pilots get good gunnery skill, they'll probably hit the target anyway, or at least often enough to where you don't want to waste the extra weight. But if you have a pilot who is really bad, you can give him streaks so that he will always hit the target. Now we have the heavy flamer. In other games, this would increase the heat to the target, so you can make an enemy shut down by overheating their mech. In this game, it's just another energy weapon. All it does is damage because there is no heat. The DPS is also pretty bad. 5 damage, 7.5 recycle. For 8 tons, that's crap. Basically, this is the worst gun in the list, and I don't recommend using it. Although I'm going to use it on the Firestarter for a while, until I get more weapons and can customize. I'm still going to customize mechs. I'm just going to respect their hardpoints. So I have no issue switching a flamer with another energy weapon. I just would not be switching it with, say, an autocannon or a missile, because it's an energy weapon. Heavy autocannon. It's actually an AC-20, and it says it in the text, but they didn't put it in the name. This is the hardest hitting weapon in the game. 15 damage, devastating, and that is not joking, because this thing here can kill a mech in 1 or 2 hits. If it's a light mech, you hit them with an AC-20, they can just pop in 1 shot. You know, if that section of the mech was already damaged or you got a headshot. But it does have 2 problems. The first is it weighs too much. 19.5 tons, which all the load valves are in weight. It's tons. And you only get 13 shots. And as I said before, there's no way to increase the weight. I mean, there's no way to increase the ammo for a weapon, so it'll always be 13 shots. It's a potentially useful weapon for when you need to put the damage out there quickly, but it has no longevity in a mission. 13 shots will be gone a couple of minutes in, and then for the other, 3/4 of the mission, you won't have any ammo for the gun. You have to try and make those shots count. Don't shoot them at a little car or a turret. Try to shoot them at enemy mechs, something big enemy targets. But you're getting a 15-point hitting damage. That's more than double any other weapon in the game. The second highest damage is 7.5, and that comes on PPCs. And I think the Gauss can also hit that hard. But you have a 15 here. Large pulse and large laser. These actually have the correct names because they are a large laser and large pulse. They're basically bigger versions of the mediums. Now they're out to a medium range, whereas the mediums had a short range. Again, the pulse laser is better DPS wise, but it weighs more. So you're putting extra weight on your mech. You're hitting half as much, but you're recharging over twice as fast, so you have a better DPS. Next we have just autocannon. That's all it says, autocannon. It's actually an AC-10. Doesn't say it in the text this time, but it's an AC-10. This is one of my favorite weapons because it is well rounded on its stats. It has a solid DPS, better than typical energy weapons. 40 shots, which is enough to get through many missions, or at least most of the way through a mission before it runs out. Doesn't weigh too much, great DPS, medium range. It's a really well-rounded weapon. I would say this is the best ballista weapon because you have a decent number of shots versus the others, and you still have a good hitting power as well. PPC, second hardest hitting weapon in the game at 7.5. There's nothing higher than that except for the AC-20 at 15 points. It hits hard, it has a long recycle time, it weighs 12 tons. I bet other people who play the game love the PPC and the ER PPC. They're definitely good weapons, but there is a problem. Only a small number of these will be sold in the store. So you're going to be pretty limited on how many of these you could buy. If you're losing the weapon in combat, if it's being destroyed, you're going to have a problem. You might end up buying mechs that have the weapon equipped just so that you can get more of them, such as the Firestarter W, the Centurion W, and the Awesome, which on that one it's AW and J for 3 ER PPCs. Long-range missile pack. That's actually an LRM-5. In order to get up to 10, 15, or 20, you would just stack them. If the same thing goes for the SRM. Each one you equip is a 2. So in order to get a 6, you would equip 3. You just stack them up to 6. Or however many you want to have. And again, this is 1 damage per missile, so that is potentially 5. That's up to 5 damage per volley. But as I said before, every missile has its own hit or miss chance, so you can shoot 30 missiles at the target, which is what a catapult does. He has 6 LRM-5s, or 2 LRM-15s if you prefer. He's going to shoot a volley of 30 missiles, but half of those could miss the target. It comes down to his gunnery skill. LRMs do not have a lock-on in this game. They can miss like any other weapon, and each individual missile has its own hit or miss chance. So I can shoot 30 missiles at a target and have 25 of them miss the target and hit the ground. They also have an incredibly long recycle, 10 seconds. It's longer than anything else in the game. I'm also incredibly limited on ammo, 24 shots. The SRMs had 62. Let's see. There is one advantage to using the weapon, though. They're weight efficient, only 4 tons. You can shoot over walls, buildings, or other terrain, specifically trees. Walls, buildings, and trees. Most weapons in the game cannot shoot over these things. You have to have direct line of sight to the target, but SRMs and LRMs can shoot over terrain. It doesn't matter what's in your way, the missiles can just go over it. So on certain missions, LRMs are going to be incredibly useful. One of my favorite weapons, and I'll be using them mainly on the catapult because, you know, lore-wise, he has 2 big missile racks. Some of the other mechs that have missile slots, they would not have racks as big as the catapult. Light autocannon. It says in the text this is an AC-5. So this is the long-range version of the autocannon. You get a fantastic amount of ammunition, 100 shots, but the hitting power is pitiful, 1 damage per shot. It's actually pretty useful for shooting at turrets and vehicles, targets that don't take much damage to kill. It'll be really ammo efficient on those targets, as opposed to a bigger weapon. If you're shooting an AC-10 or an AC-20 at a tiny little truck, you're wasting most of the round. But with the light autocannons, they conserve your ammo more. Nice long range as well. Next up on the list, we have the Ultra. This is the only autocannon that has an Ultra version in this game. So it's an Ultra AC-5. It has the same damage, but it recycles much faster. It weighs more, but you're getting 12 extra shots. I would say it's better than the regular autocannon, mainly because of the additional ammo you get, but it weighs more, from 9.5 to 11. There's also a big issue of cost. See, the first one's at 1410 credits. This one's 2740. That's almost twice as much money just for a slightly better gun. Money-wise, I would say you're better off just buying the regular autocannon. But if you can salvage one of these, which I'm sure we're going to salvage some of them, it is worth using. Or if you're desperate for money, you can just sell it. Since the value is much higher, you'll get more money off of it. Now we've got the ERs. These are extended range versions of the large laser and the PPC. They have the same stats as the regular version, damage and recycle wise, but the range was extended out to long range. Instead of medium, we're now at long. That's what our extended range got us. However, they do weigh more. The regular large laser or large pulse don't weigh 11 tons. Let me check that. Oh, we're at 9.5 for the large, 12 for the large pulse, 11 for the large ER laser. So the large pulse is actually more at medium range, but it has a fantastic DPS, whereas this one is in the middle, has long range. ER PPC, same stats as the regular PPC, but the range extends to long range and it weighs quite a bit, 15.5 tons. I wonder if that's more than an autocannon. Oh, it's the same. So it's actually the same as an AC-10. And the regular PPC was actually a 12. So we went up, what, 3.5 tons to get the extended range on that. Now we have a Gauss rifle. The Gauss rifle is basically a long-range version of the AC-10. It hits about as hard, I think. See, it says it's 7.5. The AC-10 is at 6. So it actually hits harder. Same recycle time. So much better DPS and a longer range. Problem though is it weighs more. A little bit more. 16 shots. So that's not much more than the AC-20. This is actually not an autocannon. It's a magnetic weapon. And so that's why it's called a Gauss rifle. In other games, this is a ballista weapon that would produce almost no heat, whereas the autocannons actually produce a lot of heat. This is a decent weapon, but the problem is only 16 shots. So just like the AC-20, you really have to make the rounds count. At the very bottom, we have our electronics. This is the basic sensor that comes equipped by default in every mech. Load value of 0. There's no reason not to slot this because it doesn't weigh anything. And when you buy a new mech, you will have this by default. 350 meters sensor range. In other games, the default sensor range would just be 1,000 kilometers, or is it 1,000 meters? I get confused. When it comes to distances and speed numbers, they change every game, so I can never keep up with what the values are. In this game, it's 350 meters. Then we have sensor intermediate, costs twice as much. It goes up to 435, so it's 437.5. You know, the tooltip right below says about 440. Why not just write that? It's 437.5. But it has a weight to it. So now we're at load value 0.5. If you want to slot this, you're going to have to waste half a ton of weight on the mech, whereas this one's free. It's worth using if you have nothing better to spend the weight on, otherwise I would recommend using it for a weapon. Especially if you have a dedicated scout mech in your lance that's going to have the best sensor, which is this one. Sensor advanced. This one's 6,000 credits versus 2,000 and 1,000, and it has a load value of 1. So we're up to 1 ton now. 525 meters, and that's actually the highest, farthest reaching sensor that you can get. The clanners do have a basic and advanced, these two, and their version is better than our version. But our advanced sensor is better than both of theirs, and they do not have an advanced version. So this is the highest sensor in the game. And it weighs 1 ton. These bottom 3 electronics, you'll notice they have a disclaimer, Raven or Light Clan mechs only. So we can, as I said before, we can only slot these on a Raven, but they can also be slotted on Light Clan mechs. You can get your hands on one. And since the Light Clan mechs are better than the Raven, I would recommend using one of those once you're able to. This is the Beagle Probe. It allows all friendly units to detect powered down mechs within their sensor ranges. So if you have one Beagle, your entire company gets the benefit. But it's not much of a benefit because you really don't need this thing. The Beagle Probe is pretty useless in the single player campaign. You don't need it. You're just wasting 1.5 ton of weight. But I'm going to use it anyway because realistically you would use it and you're supposed to use it. So even though it's just a 1.5 handicap, I'm still going to use it on my dedicated sensor mech. The mech that I have dedicated for my electronics, I'm going to have this rolled into it. The last one, ECM. This will halve the range of any enemy sensor that it gets close to. This one is actually pretty useful. It can allow you to avoid enemies that would otherwise detect you and come running. It can also make pulling easier by shortening the sensor range of an enemy you don't want to pull. And then you can, aggro the other one and pull him away. So we'll be using all of these. Last thing we have are the vehicles. Vehicles are pretty shit in this game. I'm not going to be using them for the most part. The Swiftwind and the Pegasus you have pretty much no reason to use. They're just a waste of money and weight. The refit truck, this can be quite useful later in the game when you have a big company of mechs. Instead of just using 35 tons on mechs to increase your weights or add another mech, you can bring a refit truck, which will allow you to replenish the armor and ammo of your entire company. And since there's no way to increase the ammo on a mech, that can be useful in extending the life of your autocannons and missiles. So, you know, 2/3 through a mission where all your guns are running out of ammo, you can use a refit truck. There are mech repair bays in the game that can also give you ammo, but if you don't have one of those, this is basically a portable mech repair bay for 35 tons. It does have a limit on how much it can replenish per mission, but it's usually enough to get you through the level. Mine layer. This lays mines. Mines are a huge problem in this game. If you run over them, that's going to be really bad. There's a few missions where we will want to lay mines for the enemy to run over. I'll be using a mine layer on those levels, but for the most part, we won't be using this thing. The minesweeper is the opposite of a mine layer. It will clear the mines without us having to run on them and get blown up. But I view this thing as completely worthless, however, because once you know where the mines are, you can just run around them, or you can shoot at the ground and detonate them. I don't see a reason to waste 40 tons of your weight on a minesweeper. And that is a little bit of metagaming, which I don't want to do in the game, but I feel that it's okay with the mines because realistically you wouldn't know if you were coming across a minefield, and once you know where the mines are, you would just go around them or you would shoot them. You wouldn't take the time to wait for a minesweeper to show up and clear through it, you know. I'm never going to use this thing. I'm definitely going to use this on a couple missions. I might use this on 1 or 2 missions. These two I'm never going to buy from the store as well. They're pretty useless. Actually, now that I think about it, there is one mission. I think there's one mission in the game where you have to buy a Pegasus from the store and use it. That'll be the only one. So that covers the store. Let's see, how long has this been? 47 minutes. So yeah, like I said. Okay, I'm going to try to wrap this up. So this is the mech bay. So the store is where we buy and sell. This is the mech bay where we have all the stuff we own. Okay, they start you off with 3 mechs, Commando A, W, and Firestarter W. Firestarter W has a very nice PPC. Try not to lose that because it is, not only are they expensive, but they're also limited in how many you can buy. Very hard to get those. All these other weapons, you know, they're a dime a dozen and they're cheap. That PPC, you know. Let's meet our pilots.
This is Hunter. This is Lynx.
Pilots only have 1 life in this game. If they die, they're gone for good. You have to replace them. If you can keep them alive, their stats will permanently go up mission by mission, and they'll eventually get promoted to a higher rank. There's 4 ranks in the game: Green, Regular, Veteran, and Elite. That rank will certify them for the next weight class on the mech. So Greens are only ideal for light mechs. They'll be penalized if you put them in a bigger mech. You notice that these 2 are Regular. That means that they can pilot a medium mech without penalty. And when we get to heavy mechs, we're going to want to put elite, or not elites, but veterans in those mechs. And with assault, we'll get elites. You can put a pilot in a mech that is below his rank. That's perfectly fine as long as you don't put one that's above his rank. So we can put these regulars in light mechs, and that's fine, but we don't want to put the greens in any mech above light, or his stats are going to be penalized, and they don't have much stat to begin with because they're green. So let's see, we got, you can see their stats at the bottom. Beast, Orphan, and Refugee from one of the Bandit Kingdoms was one of the best gunners at boot camp, but the worst at poker. Well, his gunnery is the highest stat, so he must be pretty good at gunnery. I'm just going to put him right back into the Commando A. Now, the gunnery stat, that indicates how well a pilot will hit the target. It's basically hit chance. Probably the most important stat as well. Piloting determines how well a pilot can avoid being hit, and there are a number of other factors as well. If he's running, he has a better hit chance than if he's standing still or walking. If he's laying down on the ground because he fell over, he'll be easier to hit until he gets back up. Mechs can be knocked over in this game, and they can also fall over after jump jetting. So if they are knocked on their ass, they're going to be vulnerable. Piloting also increases their chance to eject. If their mech is going down, they need to eject or they're going to die. Pilots that have good piloting skill will eject and hopefully come back alive. You'll notice the dots above his head. That's his health. If a pilot drops into a mission and he does not have full health, he's going to be penalized on his stats. And he can also get injured in a mission, which will penalize him during the mission. Usually you want to have a mech at full health when you drop him into a level.
This is the Beast.
In order to heal them, you just leave them out of a mission. And they'll sit back.
This is the
Heal up.
Beast.
Let's see, our next guy. Hawk prides himself on his ability to swoop in for the kill and the fact that he can make any minor skirmish sound like an epic battle. Well, it's good that he has this ability because I probably don't have it. How am I going to make every battle sound like an epic battle? I don't know. But you can see his gunnery and piloting are in the toilet, so he's going to be absolute shit at fighting. But he does have some jumping, and his sensor is really high, so he's going to be a decent sensor pilot when I eventually get a Raven. And we're going to take him. He's not as good as either of these two, but we need to take him into a mission so that he'll get better. In order to improve a pilot's stats, he needs to actually go into the field and fight. If he sits in the hangar, you know, his gunnery and piloting will never go up. And Hunter, compared to Hawk, or even Beast, Hunter has fantastic stats. This is your best pilot right from the get-go. With a well-chosen call sign, Hunter knows how to move and shoot like few others. That is true. His gunnery and piloting are really high, right at the start of the game. He can't jump jet much. We're not going to use Hunter for a while though, because these early missions are, you know, beneath his pay grade. They're not worth his time, and we want to skill up other pilots. So we'll bring him out later when we start getting medium mechs to put him in. For now, we're going to use our green pilots. But I don't have a third green pilot right now, and I can't buy one, so I have to use a regular right now. Comparing the stats, Hawk is better. Hunter is better at combat. Lynx has better jumping and sensor. Jumping increases a chance for the pilot to keep his mech on his feet after he jump jets, and that's really important when you're jump jetting. You're going to hate it every time they jump jet, fall over, and then you have to wait for them to get back up. Especially if they're being shot at, because when a mech is knocked over and he's being shot at, he's basically guaranteed to get hit. Your pilot can take a lot of unnecessary damage or even get killed if he's on his ass after he jump jets, whereas if he had jumping skill, that wouldn't have been a problem. Lynx was always my favorite pilot out of the starting four because he had jump jetting skill, and I really liked jump jetting in the game. Let's see. Sly and wily, Lynx welcomes the chance to jump his mech into places he shouldn't be. Fortunately, he has the gunnery skills to save his own skin. We're going to take him. Even though we don't have a J mech, We're going to take him anyway because I like him. The sensor skill, by the way, that reduces the penalty when you move. When your mech is moving in this game, it reduces your sensor range. The sensor skill will reduce the penalty on that. Now, in order to rank up, all 4 of the stats are added together. So this is the real tricker here. If you get a pilot who only has gunnery and piloting and that's all you work on him, he's going to have trouble ranking up because it adds all 4 stats. Lynx will actually rank up easier than Hunter to get veteran and elite. Because it's easy to get gunnery and piloting, it's harder to get jumping and sensor. Well, it's easy to get sensor as well, but it's hard to get jumping. You have to actually slot in a J-Mech and jump jet in order to get that. So Lynx won't really have to do that to get those points. Hunter would. But anyone can get gunnery and piloting just by fighting. Anyone can get sensors.
This is Lynx.
In order for sensor to go up, the mech needs to have a sensor, but they should have one anyway because it doesn't weigh anything. Not the regular one anyway. Yeah, I think I've discussed everything there is to discuss. Let's see. We have these 3 bars, armor, eternal, and engines. Now this can get a little complicated as well. So when enemies first shoot at one of your mechs, they'll start hitting the armor on that section of the mech. Once the armor is gone on that particular section, they'll start hitting the internals. Internals cost far more to repair than armor. You have to repair your damage after missions. It says refit all, repair all, and these are the totals. If the internals are being hit on a section, that's bad because it means that they can destroy whatever's in that section or that section of the mech. So first the armor will go, then the internals will start going. While damaging the internals, they have a chance to destroy anything in that section of the mech. And once the internals are gone entirely, that section of the mech will be destroyed if it hasn't been already. And then you have the engines. If they punch through in the torsos, they'll start hitting the engine. And that's really bad because not only does it cost a fortune to repair, but it can also detonate the mech. Engines don't like being shot. Any amount of damage to the engine can cause the mech to explode, and the more it takes, the higher the chance is. So this one being hit is okay, this one being hit is not okay, this one being hit is really bad. And as for the location of the weapons, the game will evenly distribute them around the mechs where their hardpoints are supposed to be. So you cannot cheese the game like you can in Mech Warrior 2 and 3 by just putting all the weapons in your torso and dumping your arm. You can't do that in this game. The game will forcibly put weapons in arms. If you lose the arms, you lose the weapons, which is how it should be. So this is one thing that you can actually not metagame on. It forces you to do this. For example, if I have my catapult, he has 2 LRM racks, he's going to put the majority of his weapons in those racks. Even if I take the missiles off and I put other weapons on the mech, he'll put the weapons in the arms. If he loses both of those arms, he's going to lose the majority of his weapons. Okay. Wow, I'm almost to an hour. I hope I covered everything for you. From this point on, as I go mission by mission, I'm not going to be recording the hangar very much. You're not going to see me thumb through the store, purchasing this, customizing that. Every time I come to a new video, I'm just going to be on this screen. You're going to see what I have here. I'll do a summary of what I'm going to drop with on the mission, and that's about it. And I'll just be focusing on the missions from this point out. Alright, I think I'm going to cut here. I'll read the text on this when I actually do the mission. And I'll explain a few more things about the HUD. Then we'll get to the game UI and actually get to the combat of the game. See you next time.